you.
Yeah.
Go ahead and kick us off.
Let's get everybody for joining us for another QB Power Hour. Really glad to have you joining us today. Common mistakes in QuickBooks and sharing how to fix those with you. That's the time of year we're in, is where we're cleaning up a lot of things. So I hope it's very timely information for you. My name is Michelle Long. I'm a CPA, and I've been a contract trainer for Intuit for, gosh, over 10 years, close to 20. Anyway, a long time. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm very glad to have you joining me and Dan here today. So thank you for joining us. Dan, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dan DeLong, formerly of Intuit. I was thinking this morning, I would say I'm the collector of Intuit shirts because we certainly worked for shirts there. Was there for about almost 18 years in tech support. Left in 2018 and partnered with Michelle as the can man of the Power Hour. So I'll be able to tell you what QuickBooks can do, and she'll tell you what QuickBooks should do. And that's what we're going to be talking about with some today with some common mistakes. Tis the month of January, busy time for people to be doing a lot of cleanup work. So you'll be coming across a lot of these common mistakes, and hopefully it'll help you make some quick work as we get to the end of the hour today. Hopefully we'll pick up something new, maybe that you didn't know.
Yes, hopefully. All right. So just a little bit about our QB Power Hour webinar series. They are every other Tuesday, always at noon Eastern time. And I want to thank Dan for doing such a fabulous job. He's got us scheduled out almost for like the next year because there's not room. But anyway, so just mark it on calendar every other Tuesday, and you can always go to the website and check it out and see what's coming next. And then we also have a slide in just a minute about the new texting, so you can find out what's coming next. But we always talk about QuickBooks Desktop, online marketing, a variety of topics. There's all the links for the slides on the go now. Thanks to Dan for that. And Dan, you want to remind him about our new texting feature?
Yeah. So you can stay in touch with us. You're not actually texting myself or Michelle directly. But it's a textable toll-free number. You can just text QBPH to that number, 833-395-QBPH. And you can access prior recordings, see the upcoming schedule, suggest an upcoming topic. We're always open for feedback. It's a great way to communicate with us that way, mobilely, directly on your phone.
Yes. And I just signed up for it too. And I'm testing it out and all that. So you guys go sign up for it as well. You could do that after we get done here today. But what Dan and I are going to cover today and try to talk about desktop and online whenever there's any differences. But we're going to talk about the overview, the month-end review, undeposited funds, always a big one, opening balance equity, item account mappings, bank feeds, misapplied payments, and negative account balances. So we've got a lot of things to cover. And you might notice you don't see some common things on there like reclassified transactions or the write-off invoices tool. And the reason for that, Dan and I have covered that before, and a lot of you already know that. So we were trying to cover some things that you might encounter as you go through year-end cleaning up client files, things that you may not know how to do these things yet. So first of all, Dan, you want to kick us off on a poll? What version of QuickBooks are you using?
Yeah, Michelle, you seem to be going in and out. I'm not sure what's happening with as far as the technical issues. Maybe if you just want to stop your video. I know that's such a big ask of you to turn off your video.
Oh, I hate that video. But you're right. I keep getting a little message that says your internet is unstable. So I don't know why, but I will kill the video. Okay. So you guys can see how short my hair used to be.
Right, it's like the before and after.
I know. I haven't got a haircut, not because I'm, afraid or anything like that, but I realized that when it was longer, I could put it up in a ponytail for summer and things like that. So I just let it go. Wow. Anyway, back to QuickBooks. So what version of QuickBooks are you all using? And Dan and I, as we go throughout this webinar today, like when I'm demoing, I'm probably going to be in QuickBooks Online, but we will point out if it's the same or different in QuickBooks Desktop. And Dan's going to be sharing some, screenshots and things from desktop. So we will be talking about both of those as we go along, particularly pointing out any differences between the two.
Right. And it looks like QuickBooks Online is the only version that is the single version that is ahead of the but both is definitely leading the pack here. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here and share the results. So yeah, about 47 people are 47%, excuse me, are using both. So this will come in handy for both QuickBooks Online and desktop. But then online, then desktop, and then whatever my client's using. So we may have a few zero folks on the line here.
We don't say that on this QB Power Hour.
Right.
Anyway, okay. All right. So let's go ahead. And I did close another window or two to help with the bandwidth issue. Somebody said, turn your video back on. You know what? I'm going to try going without the video for a while. Anyway, okay. So let's talk first of all about some tools that we now have available in QuickBooks Online that really help us find and fix some of these mistakes faster. I've got the screenshots here, but I'm going to go through them kind of quickly because that's for your reference later. What I really want to do is go into QuickBooks and just show them to you and talk about it. So first of all, we've got this great overview section that allows us to get a glance and kind of see what we're dealing with when it comes to that client file. And you can get an idea of some problems that they might be having by looking at the overview. And again, I'm going to go in just a minute and you'll see the common issues where it's pointing out to you that some things that you need to pay attention to. So we'll come back to that and I'll go into QuickBooks and show you it in just a second because I also want to show you the month-end review that is now available. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to do. You like to follow along and go look in your QuickBooks as well, or you like to go to the sample company and look as well. When we're talking about the month-end review, it is not available in Craig's Design in the sample company. It's not available in the sample company, and it's also not available in your books. So you'll see it when you have a client company open. If you have your own company under your books opened, you will not have month-end review. I know to it your feedback because we can't control that. So yeah, send them your feedback. So anyway, we're going to go through this month-end review, and there's a lot of different issues, a lot of slides here again showing you so you can refer back to it. But I just want to go ahead and pop in and show it to you. So let me get into a sample company that we have called Larry's Landscaping. And this is a sample company that us trainers have created for demo purposes. So you don't have access to it. And if you see things that look really weird, that's because it's a sample company and we don't do things the right way. For example, we got a bunch of accounts down here that have never been reconciled, or this one hasn't been reconciled since 2016. We've been using Larry's for quite a while. But the idea is when you're in the client overview, at a glance, you can see the banking activity and you can see, are they up to date? Have they reconciled? Are they current? Things like that. So at a glance, you can kind of check some of that out. And then when you scroll farther down, you're going to find common issues, undeposited funds. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And how to fix those because things should go into undeposited funds and then back out. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Any uncategorized transactions, assets, income, or expenses, you'll see that here, but you're also going to see some of this in the month-end review where you can click and go in and fix those transactions as well. The agings, you can get an idea if you need to write off some old invoices, things like that. Opening balance equity, we're going to talk about later. Negative asset and liability accounts, Dan's going to talk about later. So we're going to talk about a lot of these issues throughout the session today. And then down at the very bottom, you can also see the transaction volume. And the thing of this, a lot of people always want to know, how many transactions does a client have for a certain period of time? And the problem with this is you have no idea, like an expense, is an expense just a transaction that you downloaded from their credit card charges, in which case it's very, very little time? Or are you entering as an expense a purchase of inventory and it has 10 lines with items and quantities equal? So it's really hard, to time or anything like that based on their transaction volume, but you do have that information available if you need it. But let's go ahead and look at the month-end review. So when you come in here under the month-end review, and you can access it from your left-hand navigation bar over here, or from your accountant tools, you can see month-end review. Okay, so you can see those there. Two different ways to access it. So first of all, you can choose which month you're looking at. Transaction review. Here's where you can review any of those downloaded bank transactions, because you want to make sure that all the downloaded transactions have been added or matched, so that you're current with all the activity. And then I love this, open issues, uncategorized transactions. So what happened is this came through the bank feed as it up. See how it says uncategorized expense? It came through feed and nobody said which account or which category to assign it to. So they just went and clicked add, and QuickBooks then assigns it to uncategorized expense. And so it's going to show you that. So I could come in here and reclassify this, let's say to job expenses, and save and close. So add one little click here, it'll bring up these transactions to allow you to fix them. So uncategorized transactions, be it an asset, an income, or expense, all of those are going to show up in uncategorized. Transactions without a payee. Again, I can click on this real quickly and I can choose a payee name. Like I think we have a Bob the Builder out here. So let's just choose Bob. And so I can go in here and choose the go ahead and click even close. And I hear some people saying I'm kind of stopping and starting. So hopefully it's going to be okay. Payment that was received and it's not applied to an invoice, or maybe you have a bill payment that's not applied to a bill. You can go in here and you could click on that again and go apply that to an invoice if there's an open invoice available for it. Sometimes you will have an open credit sitting out there for a little while, but this allows you to review the transactions and clean up things that need to be cleaned up. And then this is awesome. I love this. Of the status of these, like let's say I'm waiting because I need to ask the client something. So you can keep track of the status of these as well. And then down here at the bottom, additional items, anything that you want to check out for that client that there's not, a list, this is where you can add things on your list. Let's say my client is bad about giving employees in advance on their paycheck. It's times are hard and people may ask, hey, can I have a $500 advance or something? So the client might give them an advance, but they forget to tell you, and you need to know so you can set up the withholding to withhold to take it back out of their paycheck. So let's say you want to say review EE advances to see if they've put anything in there. And you can give a link name, employee advances, details, review for new advances, whatever it is you want. Then this is super cool. You can go, so here I have the register for employee advances. I can copy the link. Let's say I want them to review this to see if there's anything new out there. Come over here and I can click and copy and paste that QuickBooks page link and save this. So now not only do I have a to-do item of things that you need to do, I've got a link that will take me directly to that area of QuickBooks so that you can go in and work on it. And again, you can keep track of your status for these things. Over here, if you click, this is where you can delete or edit one of these. Like if you wanted to go edit and copy and paste the link in there. So I love that. So we have that on your transaction review. Then you can get into the account reconciliation, and it's a similar thing. You can review all the accounts that need to be reconciled, and then you can add additional down here. For example, we should reconcile the employee advances, reconcile EE advances. And I could go do the same thing in here and put a link in there and all that. So that you're reconciling, so you know when the employee advance has been repaid, and then you can take it off of the payroll and stop deducting for that. So you've got that account reconciliation, and then your final review where you've got reports and all that information. And again, you could add additional things on there to run a report of open employee advances if you want to, similar to open client retainers. So these two tools here, the overview and the month-end review, they're awesome. I really like this stuff because it really helps us to see and clean things up. And back at the virtual QuickBooks Connect that we had, Reach told us that for those clients' books, when people use more accurate. So you catch things and you're able to fix them quickly and easily, and the books are 5 times as accurate as they are without it. So I encourage you to do and use that month-end review if you haven't started using it yet. And if you're using QuickBooks Desktop, you'll want to use the client data review. There's lots of tools in there to help you find and fix things, like find and fix sales taxes that were paid incorrectly, troubleshoot inventory to find negative inventory balances and things like that. Dan and I did a webinar on using the accountant tools and Desktop Online, and a good webinar that goes over details of using reclassified transactions tool and things like that. So there's a link where you can go watch that. So I would encourage you to go back and check that out. Okay. Undeposited or frozen too. So my internet is choppy. Am I too choppy, or should I keep?
Yeah, go ahead, and keep going, because what happens is it may freeze. It freezes for a second, but then it catches up. You sound like you're talking really fast as the internet is catching up to reality. So just bear that in mind, that if Michelle's audio goes out, it will catch up. So I'm not gonna interrupt her and do anything like that. But it just so this is the penalty of doing a live webinar.
Okay.
So we're making do with what we have here, but you are being heard. It just you sound like a chipmunk for a couple seconds when as it's catching up to reality.
Gosh, and I talk fast to begin with. Okay, well, I've only got a couple more things to talk about, and then Dan's taken over anyway. So undeposited funds, I'm not going to go over this too long because I know a lot of you already know how to fix undeposited funds. But for those of you that don't know this, never do a journal entry to try to fix undeposited funds, because it's like a dog chasing its tail, and you just go round and round in circles, and you go in to make a deposit, and boom, up pop all those undeposited funds payments still sitting there. So the way that you can fix it, if you don't have too many, you can go back to that original deposit. All right. So this is a deposit where somebody did not select the payments that were sitting in undeposited funds. So on the top half, you would check the 2 boxes there for Cool Cars and Freeman, select those payments that were received, and then come down to where somebody went ahead and posted it directly to an income account. You'll want to delete those 2 lines. So check off to put on the deposit, check those 2 off, and then delete those 2 lines. So you can do that if there's only a few of them that you need to fix. However, often when we find this, there's a lot of them that need correcting because the client's doing the wrong workflow. What typically happens is they may enter an invoice, they may even receive the payment, then they go look in their checking account and they don't see it in there because it's sitting in undeposited funds, waiting for you to group it together with other payments to make one bank deposit. So what happens is they go post that deposit directly to an income account. So you need to do a little research, find out which income account were they posting these things to. Because if undeposited funds is overstated, your income account is also overstated. The way to fix this in batch when you have a lot of them is to go through, pull up a deposit, and select the payments to deposit, those invoices or those payments that were received and are sitting in undeposited funds. Select them maybe month by month or year by year, depending how many of them you have. I had a client one time that had thousands of them out there, and we went through and had to do it month. Because with desktop, you could only do so many before it. So anyway, we have we select the payments to be received. Then what you do is you look over on the right, and where it says the total payments that you've selected to deposit, you're going to amount for that on the add funds negative amount. So your net deposit is 0. What this does is it moves them out of undeposited funds, and it offsets the overstatement of income, and it doesn't affect your cash or your bank balance because they only deposited it one time. So that's how you clean up undeposited funds. could go watch this. I did a video on this, gosh, 5 years ago on desktop, but the principles are still the same on how to clean this up and not mess up your bank deposit. Okay, so go through and clean up your undeposited funds.
We just had a comment on your original video on this cleanup process that's like 7 years old, but just like five days ago, where it was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. So it still holds true.
Yes.
All that time. But somebody asked the question, where is the undeposited funds correction again? Probably because it got lost in the in the spottiness here. But yeah, you go into make a deposit, and you can either apply the payment at the top and split things out. But if there's a lot of them, you can make a wash account at the bottom, and then make a huge deposit. $0 deposit is basically what you're doing to get them out of undeposited funds.
Yes.
And I had a new circumstance that came up just this within the last couple of weeks, dealing with undeposited funds. The accountant, the tax accountant, he actually created his own dog chasing his tail by creating an undeposited funds bank account. He created a brand new account called Undeposited Funds when there's already an undeposited funds account in there, and then put that to revenue. So it was a dog chasing a dog chasing a dog's tail.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
We were looking at it.
Do you want to go ahead and launch this poll question, Dan?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've come behind a CPA before who had done this lady's taxes and everything. She's, really smart, knows taxes, but she didn't know QuickBooks. And there was hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in undeposited funds. And the client knew something was wrong and something wasn't looking right. And, I had to tell her, I said, you need to file an amended tax return because you doubled your income inaccurately. So it is important to pay attention to these things. And I don't know taxes that well, but I reach out to others when I need help with that. So if you need help with something in QuickBooks, you need to make to other people on how to fix it.
Okay? Yeah, and so one thing you can do as well is drill in on you could drill in on a profit and loss, and group by or sort by transaction type, and that's a good way to find if there is a potential problem brewing. Because if you see invoices in the revenue account as well as deposits, then you kind of know, okay, there's deposit, they're depositing money directly into the revenue account, and they're possibly double stating their revenue by doing the correct workflow of invoice and payment, but not depositing those payments as they should.
Right. All right, Dan. So I see a lot of people are like me and they don't do taxes either.
Yeah, let me go ahead and end and share. Yeah.
And I love that second one. I have a referral partner for that. And that's what I did throughout the years is I had people that I would send tax work to, and they would send me the QuickBooks cleanup and things like that, because that way we both get to do what we like best. So I think that's awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead, Dan, and go through a couple, just this last thing here, and then let you take over. So the other thing that you really want to pay attention to, and again, you can see this from that overview that I showed you, is opening balance equity. This is a clearing account that you use when you're setting up QuickBooks to begin with, when you're putting in your beginning balances and things like that. When you're done with the setup process, OBE, opening balance equity, should be 0. Well, what happens is you did it right and you zeroed it out, and then all of a sudden things start showing up in opening balance equity. So where did they come from? So there's a couple different things, obviously somebody can post there, but I always try to rename it and say, don't use this account. OBE do not use or something like that, or make it inactive so they don't use it. But if they go in and they enter an opening balance for a new account, customer, a vendor, product or service item, when they're setting it up and they put an opening balance in there. So let's say it's a new bank account, for example, and they put a $500 balance in there, it's going to debit the bank account and it says, what do I credit? I don't know what to credit. I'll put the difference to opening balance equity. So, same thing if they got a new customer and they put a balance in there, it'll go to accounts receivable and opening balance equity. So what you need to do to fix that is, first of all, you need to drill down into OBE, see where the balance is coming from. And then if it's a new account that was set up, delete that transaction. And instead, you'll want to record a deposit to the bank account and credit, owner's contribution or whatever it was. In a situation of a customer, delete that transaction and you'll record the invoice. You set up the new customer and record the invoice to get the balance in there. So that's one way that you can clean things up. The other thing that can happen is when a client or somebody, may not be the client, sometimes some of our team members will do it, but when somebody deletes or makes inactive a balance sheet account that had a balance. All right, so let's say you have a savings account and they make that account inactive. QuickBooks says, I need to write that balance off. What's my other side of the entry? I don't know, so I'll put it to opening balance equity. All right, so you can reactivate that account, edit the entry, and write off that balance before you make that account inactive. All right, and then again, encourage your clients to not use this, and you can rename the account OBE dash do not use, so hopefully they won't do that. Then the other thing that's a common thing that we discover is sometimes their product or service items are not mapped correctly. And you can use the reclassified transactions tool to fix transactions when accounts are involved, but not items. So if you have items and you need to fix the account mappings, it's important to let you know, and Dan and I that's one reason we wanted to share this with you. When you go in, let's say on an inventory item, and let's say you want to change the expense account, like here you can see maybe we were changing it from cost of goods sold to inventory shrinkage or whatever the situation is. When you change an account, either the income account, the expense account, or the asset account on an inventory item, it will automatically update all historical transactions, all meaning closed periods from the beginning of time. So be aware of that. On the other hand, so that's inventory. On inventory, it will automatically change them all. On service and non-inventory items, when you change the account, so here you can see I went in and I changed different. As soon as you change the account, it will put this little box that says also update this account in historical transactions. The problem is it's all or nothing. I wish it would be update the historical transactions as of January 1st of 2020, fix all of last year, but don't go back to the beginning of time. It does not do that. All right. So it's all or nothing. So be aware that it will change closed periods. Top, it does it for all inventory items and non-inventory, right, Dan? All
Right,
items it will ask you.
Yeah, and it will give you that pop-up. So a lot of times when in QuickBooks Online, you see on the right side where it has that also update this account in historical transactions. That doesn't show up until you change the account. So a lot of people miss that, especially if they're at the bottom of the scroll bar and they just click on save and close and then wonder why the account didn't change if they wanted it to. So you do have to kind of catch it. It's a little sneaky sometimes. I guess that's the technical term for it. It's a little sneaky checkbox that doesn't come up. You see on the screenshot there, as soon as you change the account, QuickBooks Desktop gives you a window that you have to acknowledge that whether you want to say yes to historical transactions or no, or go back and make your change back to that. So that is that's one of the differences there with Desktop.
Yes.
And
okay,
you stopped my video.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was just stopping on my end. Oops.
There we go. We're just having lots of fun here working, trying to figure this out.
I was trying to help my bandwidth, but I turned off bandwidth.
You stopped mine.
I'm sorry, Dan. Take over for me, please. I'm a mess over here.
It's one of those things.
I'm
not a
done
problem.
with my part, so
yeah. So we're going to launch the third poll here. You know, this year has seen a lot of change and a lot of businesses being impacted. And am I showing, which screen am I showing? You see the island or a messy desktop?
Because I'm still seeing. I'm seeing an island.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to share. So let me
Great.
go ahead
And I'm
present.
gonna answer Helen's question here. She says, if a new client has QuickBooks Online and it has never been reconciled, is it best to start them with a new QBO or try to fix it? Everything is in undeposited funds. And Helen, that's hard to know because I don't know. It's never been reconciled. Like, is this for years? Because QBO has actually been around for a really long time, or is it never been reconciled? Activity they have, and I just can't tell you whether it's better to start over or not. Each client is going to be different, and it requires you to go in and look. And this is where, though, these tools, the overview and the month-end review, can help you see how much is in opening balance equity, how much is in undeposited funds, how many transactions are showing up as having to be corrected and stuff. So that can help you to take a look at some things, but then ultimately it needs to be your decision of what's the best way to do it. You do have to adjust to get some numbers for year end. So you're going to have to make some kinds of adjustments and then move forward doing things correctly from there on out.
Yeah, and I to answer to piggyback on that question, I just posted a blog article that we did on School of Bookkeeping, where we talk about, okay, when you want to create that line in the sand, how do I get to that point? So maybe I have last year's tax return and I want to tie it to that. We have a little workshop where we did just that. We have an Excel spreadsheet where you can take the trial balance from QuickBooks and then tie that to the last year's tax return, and it will spit out an Excel spreadsheet so that you can import that using like Transaction Pro Importer or something like that. So if you want to tie it together and basically say, forget last year, they've already filed their taxes, but I just want to tie it to that, you can utilize that spreadsheet and download that. So so how many clients a year do you lose because they've gone out of business? Less than 10% is about 50%. And I don't know if we're thinking just 2020 here, or if we're thinking about just in general. But about less than 10%. So these choices, or some of these mistakes may lend to that. All right, so now we're going to talk about bank feeds and transfers. This one comes up continually over and over again, and this particularly happens when you have a transfer between financial institutions when both sides are connected to the bank feeds. And what happens, there's some common examples of credit card payments where you have both accounts. Both accounts connected, where you've created a payment and it comes in as a transfer. A PayPal online checkout, so you're using PayPal to check out and purchase things. It sucks sucks the funds out of your business checking account. That comes in as a transfer, or a legitimate bank transfer, savings and checking. And what happens? Here's what should happen. The transfer gets added from bank account number one, and then you go to the other bank account that's connected to the bank feed, and the transaction will match from that bank account. So, you add from one, and then it gets matched to the other. But what tends to happen, what really happens, is that both transactions get added, but on the opposite sides of the transaction, and you end up having duplicate transfers, but the opposite transactions are reconciled. So this gets quite an entanglement to untangle. So here we have, why it happened. So usually there are rules at play, and there are actually two kinds of rules when we talk about rules inside of QuickBooks Online, the bank feed. So there's smart renaming rules that you don't have any control over. That is QuickBooks Learning. So as you interact with a transaction, QuickBooks is going to remember that, and this is kind of like the 2 or 3 times of you interacting with the transaction, and then eventually it's going to come up to a suggested bank rule. And the bank rules, the renaming rules and the rules that you enter inside of the bank feed, first they're suggested, and usually you may see that when you have like the third time that you've done the same transaction, and then you'll get a pop-up inside of QuickBooks Online that says, hey, do you want to do this every time? And you can do that and say yes or no. But one of the options there on a rule inside of QuickBooks is to auto add that rule. So sometimes they're mistakenly added. So here we see on the screenshot here, you're at the mercy, or QuickBooks is going to be at the mercy of the bank detail the first time, right? So it's going to try to figure out exactly what this transaction is based on the information from the bank detail. So in this case, it's a PayPal instant transfer. It doesn't even come in with a whole with a whole transfer in the bank download. So it's going to try to figure out what that actually is. You can tell that this is an instant transfer from PayPal, right? And that would be one of those situations where they maybe checked out and bought something through PayPal. So PayPal, the bank connection is going to actually record the expense, but this transfer of the funds actually coming out of the tied bank account, that's the transfer. But typically the first, when it recognizes that there's a transfer, because there is the word TRNSFE in the bank detail, it's going to record it as a transfer, or suggest to record it as a transfer. In the bank feeds, there are 4 options, categorizing, finding a match, or just matching directly, recording as a transfer, and then the newer transaction of recording as a credit card payment, which is essentially a transfer, but it's a specific transaction type that allows business owners to recognize that this is actually a credit card payment. The first time that a transfer comes in, it doesn't know what to transfer it to, so it's going to put it to the uncategorized asset, which, going back to the original overview that Michelle was showing, uncategorized asset may be a transaction. Now you know why those transactions are getting in there, is because QuickBooks doesn't know how to categorize those things initially, and then maybe they just get added through the bank feed. So how to correct it? First thing you want to do is check the rules. You want to look at the rules section. So when you're on the banking tab inside of QuickBooks Online, look in the banking rules. There'll be banking rules, receipts, and tags. Just click on the rules section, and it'll list every explicit rule that will be listed there. So you look for the rules that are set to auto add, because if you correct this and you have a rule that's set to auto add, you're just, again, another dog chasing its tail. By correcting this duplicate transaction, it's just going to put it back. I had a client that had an auto rule, so I've learned this the hard way. They had, I'm trying to think now, it's like about 5 different bank accounts, and to avoid bank service charges and fees, they had to set up auto transfer. So there was a quagmire of transfers that were just happening between accounts, and they were originally they were all the same amount, so it made it a horrible trying to figure out which transaction was which. So that they were nice enough to change the transfers amount, so I knew which transaction, which transfer was supposed to be for what account. But they had these rules set up to auto add, so when I would fix it, it would just come right back, and then I'd have this duplicate transaction again. So check the rules, and then confirm that those rules are entered properly. So desktop doesn't have the auto add functionality, so you don't have that, but you do have rules inside of QuickBooks Desktop, so you can check those rules and see if it's helping or hurting the situation. And then you want to identify the duplicate in the register. So my suggestion is just edit the memo to identify which transaction is which. So in this case, we have two transfers. I just marked them one as transfer one, and then marked the second one as transfer two. So that way, you're looking at which transfer you're actually looking at, because when you drill in on these transfers, they look identical because the same feed is pulling in the same amount from the bank feed. What you should actually see is when you go into the transfer and they're connected to two different accounts, you should see both online banking transactions. This green icon here should be showing that they're both matched. But when you actually go into one, you see one side, and when you go into the other, you see the other side. So what you want to do is delete the duplicate in the register in the bank feed. So if there is a tied bank feed transaction, that's going to show back up in the for review section inside of your banking. And then you want to re-reconcile the outstanding transaction because whichever side doesn't have the bank feed attached and matched, then it's going to need to be re-reconciled because you've deleted a reconciled transaction. So you can do that in the register or do a mini reconciliation. If you're in QuickBooks Desktop, you need to re-reconcile or do a quick re-reconciliation of just that outstanding transaction. And I've included a link there to the QuickBooks article about how to do those mini reconciliations here in the handouts. So misapplied payments. So that's the next thing that we want to talk about as a common situation. This happens oftentimes when a payment is misapplied to the incorrect customer. Michelle and I were talking about this, and it was sometimes a situation where they have the same amount or a common amount for multiple clients, and then maybe they're coming in through the bank feed, and well, I think that was for in this case, Amy's Bird Sanctuary, and it was actually posted to Bill's Windsurf Shop. Payment can't be corrected because it's already been deposited. QuickBooks Online, the bank feed is nice enough to be able for you to actually apply to open invoices or undeposited funds right from the bank feed. But if you got the wrong customer on it, you can't make that change after you've recorded it. So much like what we were talking about cleaning up the undeposited funds, you have to edit the deposit, add the deposit to amount, and delete the payment, like uncheck it. But the main thing that we want to make sure is we want to make sure that the deposit total doesn't change, and then that preserves the reconciliation status, and then doesn't show up as a when you go to reconcile a following month that this transaction was modified, thus leading you down a rabbit hole that you didn't need to go into. But then you edit the payment to post it to the correct customer, and then edit the deposit, reverse the change that you had made. So you edit the deposit and the payment to delete that additional deposit amount. So this is a screenshot or an example of that you cannot edit the payment that's already been deposited. You get the something's not quite right message because it's already been deposited. You can't change Amy's Bird Sanctuary to Bill's Surf Shop. So here's an example of you uncheck Bill's Windsurf Shop and then add that temporary line to maintain the deposit balance. And then you can edit the payment and correct it to the right customer. And then you get a message, that you will allow that to, confirm that. And then you edit the payment to the correct customer, put it back in undeposited funds. And then you edit the deposit and remove that temporary line by clicking on the little trash can. It's not a present. People used to think that was a present. It's actually supposed to be a garbage can there on the right side to delete that line item. All right, and then lastly, kind of coming in for a landing here of common issues and how to fix them. Negative account balances. So these are this is a clue, right? You're going to find this again in the overview section. You don't want to see negatives on your balance sheet for assets and liability, with the exception of accumulated depreciation. I mean, that is a negative asset or contra asset account. So if you see accounts that you expect to have a negative balance, great. This is check this one off the list. But if you see an account in here that you didn't expect to have a negative balance, and sometimes those negative balances play a little trick on you, because credit card if you look at the chart of accounts in QuickBooks Online, credit card accounts show as a negative balance, but that's just because it's a liability and there's a negative associated with that, but it's actually a positive liability balance. So that will show up here in the overview when you're looking at this screen. Now in QuickBooks Desktop, I just want to pop over here. This is the client data review, and again, we have that link to the accountant tools, so we can show you, so that you can see all of the, we go dive in a little bit about using these tools, but there is a troubleshooting the prior account balances tool, which will put a moment, when you do a client data review in Desktop, it will kind of put that that date stamp of when you've not necessarily what you've reconciled, but that you've reviewed the client's books. So changes that they've made after you've reviewed it will show up here for every balance sheet account, and you can actually drill in on the what the changes actually were. So just like an opening balance link there, that's when you go to reconcile. This will do it for all balance sheet accounts. So it's a handy tool to actually have in use, and you can use that in your QuickBooks QuickBooks Desktop accountant, or if you're a desktop ProAdvisor, you can see these tools inside of your QuickBooks on your client's QuickBooks. If you remoted into their version, you can sign into your ProAdvisor account and see those tools directly in the Pro or Premier versions, even not being on an accountant version.
Hey, Dan.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so that was great. So Julie had a question that relates to that. You can put it back up for a second if you want. So if a company pays out more from a liability account, like let's say registration fees that they collected and remitted, so they pay out more than they collected, they're going to have a negative balance in the liability account. They're saying how to fix it. Just because there's a negative balance there, it may be right. If they actually paid out more than they collected, then you want to find out why. Why did they pay out more than they collected? If I paid $100 and you refund me $200, I'll do that all day.
Yeah.
So something's wrong in that situation. Again, that you should invest.
I think someone knocked over the cell phone tower by your house, Michelle. I can't hear you at all.
Am I back?
There you are.
Well, that was strange. It just kicked me all out totally.
Wow.
Anyway, I was saying, look in the registers for activity. Look in the undeposited funds register, see if things are going in and out. Look at the credit card account, make sure payments are going in there, not just charges all the time. Look at the sales payments are getting posted in there. Go look at the fixed assets. Did depreciation get recorded? Go look at the loans. Did they get the loan payments recorded, or did they post reducing liability accounts. So go review all of your balance sheet accounts. And if there's something that you don't know, what is this? Is this accurate? Then it's time to start asking questions and fixing. Like that one person that had a huge balance in undeposited funds on the balance sheet, and she didn't ask, what is this? Is this legit or not? And it was off by hundreds of thousands of dollars. So investigate those balance sheet balances and look at the registers for activity to help you to identify other mistakes that may have been made throughout the year.
Got it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know why I'm having such tech issues today, but it's very stressful.
Yeah. So we may close up a little bit earlier today. Just call this one a day and call this the QB Power 50 minutes.
Or you all can type your questions in there quickly, since Dan and I do have a few extra minutes here. If you've got something you want us to show you how to fix it and things like that, let us know. But hopefully these things were helpful to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a lot more time. We could just go on for days, with talking about the things that clients do and how we fix them. One of the things that I wanted to mention about the upcoming webinars, beginning in February, there's going to be some announcements about some Qboa updates. And we can't talk about them now because they have, Intuit hasn't announced it yet. But Michelle and I are actually going to be the first webinar to talk about these, even before Intuit. So they're going to make an announcement in the early part of February, and mid-February we may actually have a chance to talk to Ted, who's the new accountant leader for Intuit. So hopefully we can find time in his schedule for him to come in and just to kind of introduce himself. So definitely put some time on your calendar for February 16th. That's the webinar where we're talking about the Qboa updates, and then we'll take some. There'll be another series of deeper dives into some of these QuickBooks Online Advanced features. And how to utilize them. So yeah, looks like we had some good folks here, good turnout, and learned something new today. So about 90%. So Michelle, anything in the chat or question?
Yeah. So somebody's asking about the bottom line number in undeposited funds on a balance sheet. When you see that number on the balance sheet, those are funds that are sitting in undeposited funds. So at year end, they truly may have received 3 checks, 5 checks. They may have some payments that they received that they're waiting to take to the bank to make one deposit. So that's okay. But if they have, 289 undeposited funds payments sitting there, they probably are not doing it right. If you look in the undeposited funds register, you should see things coming in and going back off, and they get checked off. So you can go in and filter for the cleared status of open and see what is outstanding in undeposited funds, and that helps you to see. Also, when you go in to make a deposit, look at the top part of that deposit slip and you'll see all the payments sitting in undeposited funds. You have to check those to get them out of there. You can't fix them any other way. That's why the fix that we were showing you is to do a $0 deposit to get them out of there. Okay, so hopefully that helps.
Undeposited funds is one of those weird accounts that has special functionality tied to it, and it's misunderstood by business owners and clients, and as well as accountants and bookkeepers sometimes. But knowing that it has that special functionality of, if you've recorded a payment into undeposited funds, only a deposit will remove it out. And so you have to use that transaction type to really clear it out. Just like applying a payment to an invoice, you have to connect those two together. You know, just having them going in and out of the same account, you know, that's, I was talking to
Doesn't
somebody
connect.
earlier today.
Yeah.
That's like a man and a woman living in sin, right? They're just living together in the same location. You gotta have a justice of the peace, ordain the marriage, and tie them together. No man take asunder at that point.
I like Diana's comment. I rename it to Little Blue Bank Bag, and clients then understand it. I love.
Yeah, that's a great best practice.
And I have seen this on the various Facebook groups. Can you explain how the Intuit login is, especially for the new desktop companies? A lot of chatter on that. How to set up the admin user and how to set up the regular users. That's a big one I've been seeing a lot of discussion about on Facebook. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, actually, right after the Power Hour today, I'm going to be doing a remote session with a client that I inadvertently set myself up as the admin. So I'll know more in about an hour how to correct that. But there are ways now. I think originally when it came out, you had to sign in, and you know, accountants and bookkeepers who are setting up the account or the company file for the client ended up becoming the admin of the of that company ID with Intuit. But there are ways now to manage those permissions. Now, when you set up, you should be able to choose the option, I'm setting it up for somebody else, which should then send them an invitation so that they, just like a master admin of QuickBooks Online, which should allow that person to basically take control of their own company. But yeah, I'll definitely share my experience right after the webinar today on how to sort out that mess when you inadvertently do that, because they couldn't create. They contacted me because they can't create users because I'm in their way. So we want to get that corrected for them.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll tell you, but I don't know if you know the answer to this one or not, Dan. What's the current status of which account to post PPP loan forgiveness account amount to? Other income? I'm not sure. I have not been staying up on all the PPP. I know Matt and Hector have been and things like that. But you definitely would want to set an account up called PPP loan forgiveness. I think other income would be appropriate. It's not a normal course of your business, and you can always reclassify that later if need be. Anything else, Dan, that you want to add before we finish up here?
No, I think we covered a lot of bases, and the technical issues. I appreciate you all bearing with the spottiness there, but
we made it through.
Continue. We did. If you have specific questions, you know, put it in the Facebook group, and we all can help each other.
Yes. So. All right. Hopefully you guys all have a great day. Hopefully you learned something that will help you. Remember, the certification training also covers some other great things in there that if you need some more help with stuff at year end. But hopefully Dan and I covered some stuff that will help you out as you go through year end. And thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. Everybody have a great day and stay safe and healthy.